Thank you so much for being with us here on Namibia Connects.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you. Now, this year's event was observed under the theme IP and Music. Feel the beat of IP. What is the meaning behind the theme?
Yes, thank you. The meaning behind the theme is simply to indicate to us that in fact, the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, which came up with a theme, looked at something that is close to everybody's heart, which is music, undeniably so, and said, what can we use, how do we use music to actually raise awareness to people out there, people who love music, that music came about because somebody have invested in producing music. That is your author, your composer, your producer, and your people who promote music for us to know about music. So for us to understand what went in for music to be here, we had to come up with a theme that is talking about music, and lastly, to just raise awareness that whenever you listen to music, you must think about people behind it, and most importantly, respect their rights, because they have rights. You cannot just listen to music and don't remunerate whoever came up with the music. So the theme is just simply to say, okay, there are people who came up with this, who have invested a lot, and we have to raise awareness that their rights need to be protected at all times.
You have collaborated with BIPA, UNAM, NASCAM to host this event. What is the significance of the three entities collaborating?
Yes, good question. That. Let me start with the National Commission on Research, Science and Technology, which came about through an act called the Research, Science and Technology Act, Act 23 of 2004. The NCRST is, the main mandate of the NCRST is simply to coordinate, promote, and facilitate the research, science, technology, and innovation activities in the country. And why the collaboration with three entities? To say that we are talking about intellectual property. At NCRST, any research activity, any science, innovation, and technological activities and has an end product, and that end product needs to be protected. How do you protect that? You protect that with intellectual property. That's why we have now looked at who else is in the space of intellectual property protection, intellectual property management, that can come on board and collaborate with us on this way. NASCAM is obviously the custodian of all the musical works in Namibia, and BIPA is the authority, because obviously if you look at the acronym itself, Business and Intellectual Property Authority, it will not be right to be talking about intellectual property and the authority is not on board. UNAM, you know, we are all told as public institutions, we are all advised to save money as much as possible whenever we call it, we carry out our mandates. And when we spoke to UNAM about this, they came on board to actually provide the venue free of charge. Because if you are to go out there and look for the venue to host 50 people, you pay not less than 100,000. So that's why UNAM is on board to provide the venue free of charge.
What role does intellectual property protection play in the fostering creativity, supporting innovation, and protecting the rights of creators in Namibia?
Well, the role that intellectual property protection plays is that specific role to ensure that creators are creators of intellectual property works, be it music or anything else, is protected. When the rights are protected, you encourage the creators to create more. And not only protection comes with remuneration. You cannot be having 105 bars or pubs along Evelyn Street, for example, making people happy, drinking, dancing to music, and the creators of music get nothing. The owner of the bar goes to the bank with with everything, but the creators get nothing. So the role that intellectual property protection plays is to encourage the creators to create more, because they don't only create to entertain, they create to inform, they create to educate, and if you take that away, you have a nation that is moving ahead without being informed, without being educated, because listening to music also plays a role in somebody's livelihood.
Many local artists have often expressed the need for legislative reform to prevent injustices and to genuinely support them and protect their intellectual property. How realistic is that?
Well, it is realistic because, as I said, you cannot have somebody creating and whatever they are creating is enjoyed by everybody out there and they get nothing. They have the right to complain. And they are complaining because, for example, the act that we have is called the Namibian Copyright and Neighboring Rights Protection Act. I think it's Act number 6 of 1994. It has been amended in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. It's still on its way to Parliament. But they are complaining because this process is taking too long and things are happening out there. And when things are happening, those who are supposed to benefit are not the ones benefiting. For example, if I can give you an example that is known to everybody, we have YouTube, we have TikTok, where when the moment you open those platforms, you log on, all you hear is music. But is the owner of music that is playing there getting their fair share? No. Therefore, there should be a legislation in place that looks at all these activities and come up with specific measures to remunerate the creators and also to, at the same time, protect the work against unfair use and unauthorized commercial activities.
How would you describe Namibia's effort in promoting intellectual property rights across sectors?
Well, yeah, that one is a tough one, but I think Namibia is doing fairly well. I'm saying fairly well because we are not at the level where we are supposed to be, taking into account the legal instruments that we have, the policies that we have in the country. We are not at that level yet because there are countries that are doing much better. But Namibia is doing fairly well because, number one, we have a national intellectual property and strategies policy in place, and I am the chairperson of the implementation committee of that policy. If I ask you to go throughout Africa and give me a country that has that, very few. Yes, yeah. In that way, we have a policy to guide, and additionally, we have BIPA, which was created through the BIPA Act. I think it's Act 8 of 2016, which is there to actually look at anything and everything IP. IP is happening in businesses. That's why it's aligned with BIPA's mandate to look at any business that is using intellectual property as their means of revenue generation, to be doing so in collaboration with the institution to make sure that the owners of those intellectual property are actually remunerated fairly and so on. And then we have the Communication Act, I think is Act number 9 of, Act number 8 also of 2009, through which a CRAN has been established, and all the communication, obviously, there is music in it, there is intellectual property in it, there's everything else in it. And if you have a country which has all those enabling environment, you can say that you are doing fairly well. But we can, I'm sure we can do much better.
Any final remarks?
Final remarks, yes. I'll just repeat that if you close your eyes and open them, everything you see is IP. Everything, from the glasses you have on your eyes, from the clothes you are wearing, from the cameras that we are using, yeah, that is IP. But are we aware what we need to do to appreciate those who bring us all those products? No. How do we do that? In my view, what Namibia needs to do is to introduce intellectual property education in our national curriculum. Because when you have people who know what they are doing, you have it better. And secondly, to also listen to the we are saying we recognize that we are as Namibia, we are in a global village. You cannot be in a global village, but you are doing something else from what everybody else in that village is doing. What I'm trying to say is to say, look at what the world is doing in terms of which international conventions that are there, international treaties, international agreements that are there to make sure that your legal or your laws, your acts are in line with what the world is saying. Because if you don't have that, you will be doing something that is 120 kilometers away from what everybody else is doing. You need to move with time. Specifically, talking of the World Intellectual Property Day, which talks about music, you cannot have artists whose works are misappropriated on these platforms, but the country is doing nothing. Why? Because we haven't ratified some of the most important international treaties that will allow our laws to take on board measures to protect our artists from this unfair use of their work online.
Thank you so much for being with us and just giving us an insight of the event that happened on the 26th of April.
It's my pleasure.
And we also hope next year it will be bigger, better, and that more attendance and more clients will join as well, and more awareness